Chapter 11. And baby makes. I found out I was pregnant the week I was hired to work in Philadelphia. I was very excited because by this time I was very much certain that Kevin was the man I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. No, I wasn't looking to get married, and neither was he. But we knew we wanted to be with each other. I thought we would be doing our thing the way Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell do their thing. Commitment, kids, and all that. Just no marriage papers. Who needed that anyway? I had been through that once and was not interested in doing it again. It wasn't necessary. We were in a new town, fresh off of the wretched stress of going through a trial and all of that drama back in New York. And now we were starting a new family. Things were turning around for us. The new station had put us up in a hotel until we found a place. I was anxious to find a home in the area and make a statement. I wanted people in Philly to know that I wanted to be a part of Philly. I already knew how they viewed New Yorkers as people who think they're above it all and that their shit don't stink. I didn't want to appear to be a New Yorker who was using Philly as some springboard to get back to New York. I was fully prepared to spend the next 30 years in Philly. I planned on being like Mary Mason to Philly, someone really entrenched in the Philly scene. Mason is a very prominent older woman who means a lot to politics, broadcasting, and media in general. I was committed to Philly, so we found a three-bedroom apartment in the heart of Germantown. A three-bedroom because we were going to have a baby. The plan was to make sure we wanted to stay in Philly, rent for a year, sell our place in Port Liberty, New Jersey, and buy a home in South Jersey. Kevin was still commuting back and forth to Jersey City, where we had a condo in the Port Liberty Yacht Club. He was still taking care of his car detailing business, which I respected and he needed to do. We both spent weekends in Jersey City, but Philly was home. We were still living in a hotel and hadn't moved into our apartment yet when I had my miscarriage. I had gone to the bathroom. There was blood in my underwear and on the tissue, and I knew it couldn't be my period. Kevin and I went to the hospital together and they said I'd lost the baby. Actually, at 7 weeks in my mind, I didn't consider it a baby. It was a seed, but it was painful all the same. Perhaps it was the stress from the trial and the Hot 97 drama. Perhaps it was the pressure of the new city and having to reestablish myself in this market. I don't know what caused it. The doctor said it was common for women to naturally abort early on. It was not unusual at all. But I was very paranoid. I wanted to make sure that everything inside was okay and that I took every precaution to make sure it didn't happen again. I didn't feel that the doctors in Philly gave me the best care. I felt like a welfare woman going to the hospital. No disrespect to those on welfare. But I'm not checking for bad health. I'm not checking for bad health care. And to white doctors, we're all the same. I come in there with my man, no wedding ring. That sends one image. I had no insurance. My job was so new that I had to wait 3 months for the insurance to kick in. That sends another image. I'm crying and carrying on, and here is my man, this thug. That sends yet another image. And although there was a big to do about my coming to Philly with newspaper articles and television coverage, I'm sure this doctor could care less about urban radio, and he had no idea who I was. In fact, no one in the hospital knew who I was. I was treated like any other unwed mother with no insurance. I meant nothing to them. I got the nigger treatment. So I called my doctor in North Jersey, and made an appointment for her to check me out. The following week after my show, I got on the Amtrak train. I didn't want to deal with driving. Kevin met me at the train station. We went to the doctor's together. I was strong. I did my crying on the train ride. I did most of my crying when he wasn't around because he didn't need a weak woman. I knew if he knew how heartbroken I was, he would drop everything and just be with me 24/7. He would sacrifice his business and everything. But that's not what I wanted. So I kept a lot of my emotions hidden from him. He met me. We went to the doctor and she gave me a DNC, dilation and curettage, where they vacuum you out and make sure you don't keep bleeding and make sure your womb is free of anything that could give you an infection and will be ready to receive another child if that is God's will. My doctor basically gave me a clean bill of health. Kevin dropped me off at the train. I had to force him to return to his business and told him that I would be all right. I had this. I went back home and I got up the next morning and did my show like nothing happened. I didn't miss a beat. Less than 2 months later, I was pregnant again. What a blessing. Everything was going to be all right. My show in Philly was really taking off. Kevin's business was doing well. We were enjoying our living arrangement, and we were pregnant again. In the summer, when I was in my third month, we started buying furniture for the nursery, which was the bedroom off the master suite. By August, I was in my fourth month and shopping for baby clothes. I was starting to show. I had stopped doing nightclub appearances at this point, but was still making some daytime appearances. And everywhere I went, people were congratulating me. I shared this entire experience with my radio audience, as I share things with my audience today. They were part of my growing family. One night in September 1998, Kevin and I were in the bedroom of our Philly apartment watching a movie about the Temptations. I had fallen asleep on the movie and woke up because the bed was wet. We had a king sized bed and there was a puddle on my side. I thought I had urinated on myself, so I got up and went to the bathroom. I came out with this curious look on my face and said to Kevin, "You're not going to believe this, but I think I peed on myself. I have to change the sheets." We both had a little chuckle over it. I changed the sheets and I got back in bed. We were both wide awake watching television and I felt more water, and it wasn't coming from my bladder. I looked at Kevin and said, "My water broke. I'm about to have the baby." By this time, I had found a regular gynecologist obstetrician in Philly. We called her and she met us at the hospital. It turned out that my water did break. They tried everything, but I lost the baby. They couldn't save her. Yes, I know it was a her. We had even picked out a name for her when we found out just weeks before that we were having a little girl. It's too painful to even utter her name now. But yes, she had a name. She had 10 little fingers and 10 little toes, and she had a perfectly formed face. She was a baby. She was 5 months into gestation. We didn't have a funeral because I felt that it would be too much for my fragile emotions to take. All I wanted to do was get back to being strong, and I wanted my husband to continue on with his business. I didn't want to be a wet noodle because he has shown me he will drop everything for me. He was my pillar of strength during the trial. He was constantly lavishing me with gifts and surprises. He was holding it down for me at social gatherings and family events. He has shown me he was down for me, and I didn't want to have to put him through that. It's nice to have that kind of strength supporting you. I didn't want to abuse it, ever. I considered losing that baby something I could handle. I kept saying to myself, I will not be weak. I will not be weak. I will check out of the hospital and I will get back on the radio. I will get back to work and I will be strong for the community. I will be strong for the sisterhood. I will be strong for my man and I will be strong for my mom and dad who would have left Florida, flown up here and stayed with me for as long as I needed them. But I didn't want to burden anybody. Kevin sat me down and had a long talk with me. Maybe God doesn't want us to do it like this, he said. We are meant to lead our community, and maybe we aren't representing the right thing. Maybe God wants us to do it the right way. Maybe we're out of order. Let's get married and then work on having a baby. Married? This was a big step. Kevin was never the marrying type. He said he had never seen a marriage that worked. And while I had been down that road before and it wasn't good. I was scared to death to do it again. But maybe Kevin had a point. Maybe we were out of order in God's eyes. And the more I thought about it, the more I wanted to get married. I wanted to have his last name. I wanted to be a hunter legally and in the eyes of God. And I wanted to wear a ring. Not the ring he gave me with so much pomp and circumstance a number of years before. I wanted to wear the ring. I know a lot of women soil their ring finger with friendship rings and long term boyfriend rings. And Kevin had given me a beautiful diamond ring as an engagement ring in front of thousands at a huge party he threw for my birthday. But I felt like the engagement ring he gave me at my birthday party was a lie because neither one of us then had any intentions of getting married. That ring did truthfully represent our love for each other, and we felt that ring and our love would be enough. It wasn't. I wanted him on my health insurance. I wanted the same name on our passports, and I wanted for white America, as well as black America, to know that we are a family, for real. I wanted my child to have married parents. No disrespect to anyone who is living with a boyfriend with several kids and all that, but that's not what Wendy from Wayside wanted. I wanted the real deal. Neither one of us wanted a big wedding in a church and all of that. We didn't need any presents. My homes in Jersey, the Jersey City condo, the condo in Florida, and my apartment in Philly were already well laid out. I had the finest crystal, china, and all that. I slept on no less than 400 thread count sheets. I didn't need another damn toaster. I didn't want to wear a white dress, not because of the purity issues, but because white makes me look fat. And we didn't want to spend all of that money. We'd rather put the money towards something else, like another house. Our love was beyond that showy shit. I didn't need to stand before a church full of people to show Kevin that I loved him and vice versa. Besides, just the thought of a big wedding? Vomit. So 2 months after the miscarriage, I ordered our marriage license. We set the date, November 30th. It was a Friday and gave me a chance to go to the Jersey City condo, which I hadn't been to in a while, and spend a nice weekend there. We were going to be married at the Jersey City courthouse. So after my shift, I drove to Jersey City. I changed into a little mini skirt and a black turtleneck and my stiletto ankle boots. I went to the condo and Kevin picked me up and we went to the courthouse. We were married by the Justice of the Peace, who happened to be the brother of Grace Jones, the singer and actor. Our witnesses was one of Kevin's buddies and Grace Jones's brother's secretary. After we got married, he dropped me off and went on to close his shop. And that was fine with me. We were married. I had my new ring. Most guys would have traded in the old ring for a new ring, but Kevin took the old engagement ring and made it into a necklace that I wear 365 days a year. The only time I take it off is for medical procedures. I had my wedding ring and my husband. I was Wendy Hunter. I thought, now in God's eyes, we will be more blessed. In January, we took a late honeymoon and went on a cruise and had a great time. But when I got back, all of the emotions of the 7 week miscarriage and the 5 month miscarriage came flooding back. And while I continued to work and put on a nice face, inside I was slowly dying. But that all changed in April. I sold the condo in Jersey City, moved out to the Philly apartment into a 5 bedroom, 4 bathroom house in South Jersey. We were putting down roots, and I found out I was pregnant again. What a bittersweet moment. On one hand, I was happy to be pregnant, but on the other, and in the forefront of my mind, I was thinking, will I be able to keep this one? This time, I took no chances. I would do no appearances. I would take it easy, and everything was going well. I was in my 4th month, and everything was going well. The baby was kicking, and I shared every moment and joy with my listeners. I was starting to feel the excitement. One weekend, my sister and niece were visiting, and we went outlet shopping in South Jersey. We shopped for household items and things, preparing for the baby. We ended up at my local ShopRite because I had a craving for a roast beef sub, and they made it just the way I liked it. While standing at the counter waiting for them to make it, I started feeling a sharp pain. I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to start any shit. This was my neighborhood ShopRite. People there knew me as Wendy from the radio. I didn't want to be embarrassed. I didn't want to alarm my sister or my niece. I didn't want to create a scene. This is so typical of me. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. I don't want to put people out. I don't want to alarm people. I was feeling these pains and I didn't know why. I got my sub and we went back to my home. I mentioned something in passing to my sister who said, it sounds like Braxton Hicks contractions. False alarm, nothing to worry about. It was getting late, so my sister and niece headed back to their home. I put my feet up and I ate my sandwich. But with each passing minute, I was feeling more and more pain. Kevin was in New York handling his business. It was about 9 in the evening and I was home alone. I was getting worried, but I wasn't too alarmed or thinking about losing the baby. Last time my water broke. I checked and there was no water and no blood, so I just lay down and started crying. I was going through my emotional thing. I was alone and I was scared. I was in the dreaded 5th month and I didn't want to call the ambulance. And I didn't call my husband because I didn't want him racing down the turnpike, especially for a false alarm. But as the pain increased, I knew I had to do something, so I did break down and call Kevin. He made it home in 45 minutes for a commute that normally took an hour and 15 minutes. I knew I had to get to a hospital and I didn't want to go in an ambulance. I collected my emotions, and by the time Kevin got home, I was calm. We went to the hospital and they checked me in. I was put in this large, luxurious room. When I had my miscarriage before, I was in a tiny room and people kept coming by asking for an autograph. This time I was in a private room with a big cedar closet. It seemed like the type of room they would put someone like Diana Ross if she were having a baby. So I called it the Diana Ross Suite. When I called my parents, I was even joking about how they had me in the Diana Ross Suite. I was trying to keep everyone's spirits up. Friends were dropping by bringing me food. I had steak and lobster in the Diana Ross Suite. Kevin brought my makeup, my hairpiece, my fluffy slippers, and my favorite robe. One of the reasons why I love him is that he knows me. He knows how to love, how I love to look, and what makes me feel good. I was yucking it up in the Diana Ross Suite. All the time, I had no idea we were actually going to lose another baby. I was in the hospital approximately a week, and the doctors forced delivery. The baby was dead inside me the entire week. I didn't want to know the sex of the baby this time, but a nurse came in and said, "You had a girl." Did I ask you? As long as that was out of the bag, I asked the nurse how she was. She told me she was discolored and polluted. It was terrible. Once again, we opted not to have a formal funeral. I wanted to leave the hospital and start over again and leave all that pain and despair right there. On the way out of the hospital, they make you ride in a wheelchair, and one of the nurses handed me a hospital folder, which I assume was the bill with all of the charges from my stay. I opened it and it was the records of my baby girl, including her little footprints. I dumped the entire folder in the garbage at the curb near our car. I didn't want any kind of memory. I wanted nothing. They asked me if I wanted to name her. I told them no. She would simply join her sister in heaven, and they will both be there waiting for me when I get there. By the next week, I was back on the radio again. And once again, I had to explain to my radio community how I lost another baby. Shit happens. And they say that in life, much rain must fall, and what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. Well, fuck that. It's easy to say, but until you go through something like that, well, let's just say I wasn't seeing all the silver lining at that point. I wanted to die. Hey, didn't I do the right thing? I got off drugs. I was clean. I was living right. Hell, I had even gotten married. I made all of my doctor's appointments. I was taking it easy. And it didn't matter. I went through the pain of feeling a baby grow inside of me. I felt her kick and move. We sang to her and talked to her every night. Everything was so right, and everything was going so wrong. 4 months before she was to make an appearance in this world, we lost her. Gone. Pain. I said to myself, well, I guess everyone can't have everything. Losing babies, to me, it doesn't compare to losing loved ones. At least people who have been here had a chance to live. You got a chance to experience them, get to know them, get to really love them. But losing a baby is like being stripped of the opportunity to love something you created. I felt so hollow. I felt like a woman with everything but the thing she wanted the most. I felt like I was failing my husband. And at that point, I was thinking that perhaps getting a divorce would probably be the best thing. I knew I'd be a mother. I was not opposed to adoption. I figured I would be a single parent, adopt a beautiful girl or boy. But first, I would divorce Kevin. I was in such pain, not just because I lost the babies, but also because I failed him. Here, I have this near perfect guy with so much life and so young, and here I am, damaged and cannot give him a child. I've tied down a man who could go off and have children with a perfect woman, but he's married to me. If we weren't married, he could just pick up and move on and have that family. I felt he de- I felt he deserved to have children, and I was not sure if I could ever give him any. Why should he suffer through life never having a child to carry on his genes and family name? I wasn't going to do that to him. And mind you, Kevin never pressured me about having kids. In fact, he was a real trooper. He would say in his cute thug way, "Baby, it doesn't matter. We don't need a baby. We can just spend our time spoiling each other." But I wasn't buying that. I felt at that point I would just release him. Let him go and find a woman who can bear him a child. I recalled thinking heavily about divorce and not talking to anyone. At the same time, I was trying to pull it all together and get on with my life. 3 days after being released from the hospital, I decided I would go to the mall. I got out of bed, put on my makeup, did my hair, put on my designer clothes, threw on a fur, got in one of my new Mercedes Benzes, and headed for the mall. When I got to the first light, I just broke down and started crying right there. I looked to my left and there was a little girl in the passenger seat looking over at me. I had on my Christian Dior shades, and I know I must have looked like so many ladies I used to see when I was a little girl riding in my mother's car. I used to see the ladies at the light in the designer shades driving an expensive luxury car with that rich look and think to myself, I'm going to be like that when I grow up. She was so fabulous. I aspired to become the lady at the traffic light. I just never knew that the woman at the red light could have so much pain and so many tears behind those designer shades. That was until I became the lady at the light. Perhaps the lady back then was hiding so much like I was that day. Maybe she used a lot of Visine to hide her red, tear-stained eyes. Maybe she too could Maybe she too used cold compresses to keep down the puffiness under her eyes. Maybe the lady that I admired so much as a little girl was no happier with her life than I was with mine. And I had to go through this pain alone. The deepest pains of a woman, I don't think men understand. I wasn't going to burden Kevin with it. My mom and dad would understand, but I didn't want her flying up here to be my mom. My sister and brother had their own lives. I didn't want to burden them. And I think of all that doting and hand holding makes the healing process that much slower. I didn't want that. I wanted to heal fast. So I shared with the only people I could share with at this time, my listeners. This was my second 5-month miscarriage, and I was amazed by the number of faxes and calls I got from all over Delaware Valley of women telling me they went through or were going through the same thing. I thought, why weren't people talking about this before? People talk as if having a baby is so damn easy. I know 4 different couples right now who are having trouble having a baby who are seeing specialists. If having babies is no problem for you, please know that you are blessed because there are too many for whom the experience is most difficult. Between the 2 5-month miscarriages, I got hit with another whammy. My doctors found that I had thyroid disease. They said it could come from a number of things, including stress, and I had plenty of that. My parents kept asking me why I was talking with my eyes popped out and sweating all the damn time. And at this time, I had stopped using Coke. I went to the doctor and he discovered a lump, a goiter in my throat area. They treated it by making me drink a radiation drink that burned out my thyroid and put me on a medication which regulated my system, replacing the duties of the thyroid. I have to take the pill every day for the rest of my life to keep my system regulated. So I'm dealing with all this and trying to stay strong. Mother's Day 1999 rolled around and it was the saddest day of my life. I spent the day reflecting on what might have been and how empty and sad I was. At this point, I changed my shopping hours to a time when I thought few kids would be in the stores. I couldn't bear to see any kids. Fast forward to November 1999, I had this strong urge to get some sushi. I got some takeout from the sushi place not far from our home. I pulled out of the parking lot feeling real crazy. I was very cloudy and I pulled out right in front of another car and it sideswiped my shiny Mercedes, which was sitting on 22s. And while I was thinking, oh shit, what am I going to tell Kevin? You know how niggas are about their cars. I was also thinking, I really feel weird. I exchanged info with the guy who hit me and I headed home, thinking all the way that I needed to come up with a good story for how this happened because I didn't want to hear Kevin's mouth. I decided to tell him that I thought I was pregnant because somewhere inside I thought I was. I stopped off on the way home and got an EPT. I went home, took the test, and in 3 minutes that little strip came up pink. I was pregnant. All I could think was, I am pregnant and I'm not going to be screamed on about the car. I was pregnant again. I told Kevin about the car and the pregnancy, and he was excited. We made an appointment to see a doctor the next day and confirmed everything. And what we also found out was that if I was going to actually have this baby, I needed to have a cerclage and bed rest. They discovered that the reason why I kept losing my babies was because my cervix was weak and couldn't support the weight of the baby. I told the job about the baby in my third month, which was when I got the cerclage and was put on bed rest. The station was very understanding. I put them on notice, no appearances. Thanks to modern technology, they hooked up a mic in my home, and every morning I went to work from my bed. The doctor said I could be on my feet no longer than 30 minutes a day. I reduced that to 15 minutes. Again, not taking any chances. I got up long enough to go to the bathroom, basically, and that was it. Oh, and if I had a doctor's appointment, I would get up for that. I had two doctor's visits a week, one with my regular GYN and another with a specialist. I enjoyed going to the doctor because every week I got confirmation that I was still pregnant and the baby was fine. The specialist gave me an ultrasound every visit where I could see the baby and hear the heartbeat. So I looked forward to my doctor's visits. I had a contraction monitor in my home, and no friends visited. I didn't want to burden them. Kevin set up a cooler next to the bed, and before he would leave for work every morning, he made sure I had enough to eat and drink for the day. So I lay in bed after work and ordered everything I could think of from QVC. Everything but baby clothes. I wasn't doing that again. I would order scarves, potpourri, Suzanne Summer pajamas, anything and everything. I was addicted to QVC. I watched hours and hours of television and would change the channel when babies appeared. I didn't want to come to terms with what I was going through. I was pregnant and I couldn't go through another tragedy. Kevin and I decided we were going to do everything in our power to make sure we kept this baby. We decided there would be no sex. Not because the doctor ordered it, but that's what we elected to do. We did not want to do anything to agitate the area. When I say no sex, I mean no orgasms. Not even a blowjob because, well, that would agitate the area because it would make me aroused. I wasn't taking any chances. And with this pregnancy, there would be no fights. It's not something we talked about. It's just the way it was. I talked in nice tones. He talked in nice tones. We had a housekeeper. And we hired an assistant who would run errands like doing the grocery shopping and picking up clothes from the cleaners. There was nothing for me to do but watch TV, shop, and eat. I was eating anything I ever wanted to eat. There were no limits. And by my 8th month, I had ballooned. I was a blob. I had gained more than 100 pounds. Nearing my 9th month, they also cut my cerclage. It was a signal that I was ready and all systems were go for delivery. I made them give me the cerclage in a plastic baggie. Hell no, I didn't want them to throw it out because I'm nasty and sentimental. They used this thick shit that looked like whale stitching. It was very nasty, but I wanted it. It was a reminder of what I went through to get to that point. It was mine. Nobody will ever understand. Maybe one day I'll show it to my nasty son when he gets older and tell him, this is the difference between you being here and not being here. It's in my freezer today waiting for him. Oh yeah, I gave birth to a perfect, healthy baby boy on August 18th, 2000. My beautiful baby arrived 1 week overdue. Kevin Samuel, named for my papa, my late maternal grandfather, Hunter, was 7 pounds, 20 ounces, 19 and a half inches long. He had 10 fingers and 10 toes. He was perfect. I had him the old fashioned way. I pushed, pushed, pushed. I blew my insides out. The delivery took 45 minutes. I did it like a champ. Yes, I had an epidural. I might have gotten 3 of them, as much pain as I was in. Kevin was right there the whole time, and it felt good. I was so glad he wasn't a baby's daddy. There's nothing like delivering a baby with your husband. They're holding your hand through the whole process. There is a sense of endearment you feel for your man during that time that can't be explained. And I was so grateful that this was the first time he was experiencing this. I always knew I didn't want the drama of dealing with the man with kids, but I never understood the deeper meaning of that feeling until I put on my own baby show for him. It was a special moment made more special because we both shared it together for the first time. And I delivered him a son. Shout outs to all the women who delivered beautiful baby girls. They are blessings too. But the men, they want a son. The bastards. They might not admit it to you, but men want sons. They want someone cut in their own cloth. Women, we love any sex, but men want that child in their image. And I delivered him his very own little Kevin, Kevin Jr. After they brought him to me all cleaned up, I never let him go. I slept with him in my arms for 24 hours. My husband was exhausted and slept in the chair next to us. Everybody came through. My parents, our friends, his mother, all bringing things champagne, cigars, flowers. And when the party was over, my baby was still with me, clutched in my arms. I had pains in my arm muscles from holding him so tight. I had never held a baby before. Isn't that strange? In all my years, I had never held a baby until I held my own. I was scared to hold my niece or nephew when they were babies. Even growing up, I wasn't one of those girly girls. I didn't play with Barbie dolls and dream about having a baby of my own. I wasn't a tomboy. I just wasn't all that maternal. Prior to having my own baby, I was the woman in Bloomingdale's who looked at the mothers with their screaming kids and thought to myself, oh, brother, get these kids out of the way. Can't you see I'm shopping? In my mind, I could give a damn. I didn't even babysit much when I was growing up. If I did, the kid was about 9 or 10, no babies. And I was doing it strictly for the money, not because I loved being around kids. Holding little Kevin was my first experience with maternal feelings, and it was the most joyous feeling I had ever had. I was never letting him go. Even when Nurse Ratchet came to get him circumcised, I rolled myself out of the bed and carried him to the operating room. I wasn't letting them do anything to my baby without me being there to watch. They might try to switch my baby on me. I watch Lifetime. I see what goes on. We worked too hard to have him for anything like that to happen. The next day we went home. It was the scariest drive we ever had. We drove from the hospital in Philly to our home in South Jersey on the shoulder with the flashers on. I never asked Kevin to do that, but we must have been on the same wavelength because I was thinking the same thing. He drove on the shoulder with his seat up. Now, if you've ever seen a thug drive a car, you know he has to have the seat all the way back, practically in the back seat with that lean. But Kevin had his seat up and he was all hugged up on the steering wheel and the radio was off. I sat in the back seat staring at our son. I was in love and speechless and couldn't stop my tears of joy. We were so happy and so cautious. You would have thought we were the first couple ever to deliver a baby. When I got home, my mother and father were there with the spread. It was like Soul Food Sunday. My mother loves to cook, and she made everything from scratch. My father, brother, and sister and brother in law were all there cooing and catering to me. I was like queen for the day, a queen and her prince. I was in heaven. I had made a deal with God entering my 9th month, and I realized I had put on about 105 pounds. That if I had this baby, I would not obsess about losing the weight and greet my baby with a smile. I even told God I would drive a minivan if I had to. Lord, I will drive a minivan for you. The weight? Well, while I was in my 8th month, I scheduled a tummy tuck for 4 months after my delivery, and I traded in my Lexus 470 Jeep for a minivan. It was a Mercedes ML 500 AMG. Don't get it twisted, people. That particular Mercedes is a minivan. So don't go putting rims on it because you can't really dress up a minivan. It is what it is. I got my minivan. I had my husband. I had my career. And I finally got my baby. Everything was perfect. But things are not exactly what they appear. In the midst of all this joy, yet another seed of turmoil found a way to root itself in my life.